Well, state witness Constable Sizwe Zungu is expected back on the stand at the Senzo Meyiwa Murder Trial sitting in the High Court in Pretoria. 5 men are currently on trial for the murder of the soccer star in 2014. Meyiwa was at the mother's home of girlfriend Kelly Khumalo in Vosloorus, east of Johannesburg, when he was shot. More details in this, let's cross live to our reporter, Chriselda Lewis. Chriselda, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Look, the cross-examination of Constable Zungu continues today. A lot of incriminating as well as contradicting evidence from him during his testimony so far. What can we expect today?
All right, Alicia, you'd recall yesterday Constable Sizwe Zungu came under fire for failing to arrest the accused after he had testified or told this court that he saw some of the accused exchanging firearms with his nephew at a Vosloorus hostel. This was on the day that Senzo Meyiwa was killed back in 2014. You'd recall that Zungu previously testified that he had witnessed the exchange of firearms between accused 1 and 3 and his nephew Gwabini after the accused had returned to the hostel in a panic. That was between 8 and 9 p.m. on that night. Zungu had been invited, he says, there by Gwabini for a get-together, but the defense says, Alicia, he is lying, insisting his conduct was questionable and suggested that Zungu had broke his oath of office. Advocate Zandile Mhlongo accused Zungu basically of fabricating the whole hostel story, and that her client, she says, accused number 5, was never at that hostel but in Johannesburg, basically working. So what we know so far, or where we are, is that all 5 of the men currently on trial for Meyiwa's murder have all so far said through their lawyers that they were never at that hostel, and they don't even know Zungu, who says he was in their presence on that day. So Zungu was also accused of sitting on or withholding information, Alicia, for 4 to 5 years before telling police about the hostel incident, the get-together essentially. And what he testified was some of the accused hurriedly returning, supposedly, from wherever it is they were, and basically exchanging firearms with Gwabini. In his defense, what Zungu basically said is that he hadn't been initially sure of what of the alleged involvement of these accused and what their role could have been in Meyiwa's death. So Advocate Zandile Mhlongo will conclude her cross-examination of Zungu today. We're expecting some re-examination before we're expected to see another witness likely to take the stand later today.
All right, and Chriselda, quickly, before I let you go, look, when proceedings commenced on Monday, Advocate Mnisi had submitted to the court that he would admit to court records a USB that contained specific information that might, of course, be admissible to court. Any developments on that front so far?
Well, Alicia, you would recall after or before we'd gone to the long adjournment and returned this past Monday, after about 2 to 3 weeks, that was the main bone of contention relating to Advocate Charles Mnisi, who was representing accused number 3, wanting access to the master copy of the photographs that were downloaded from the phone of accused number 3 at the time that he had been arrested. Now, what the defense is essentially trying to do, you would recall that some of the descriptions that Zungu had given, he'd said on the day that he had been in the company, for example, of accused number 3, accused number 3 had been wearing a lime shirt and a necklace, essentially. So what the defense would want to do is to look at the photographs that were taken on that day and juxtapose that with the description that Zungu is giving of the clothing that he says, for example, his client, accused number 3, was wearing on that particular day. So what they're basically saying, and what we've already heard and what I have said, is that all 5 of these accused that are currently on trial for Meyiwa's murder say they were never at the hostel. There was no get-together. There'd never been anything that had taken place in the company of Constable Sizwe Zungu. They don't know Constable Sizwe Zungu. So the defense, essentially what they're trying to do here is to point this particular witness as unreliable, also as unprofessional, Alicia, because you would recall he was still a police officer. He is still a police officer. And on the day that he says he was in the company of these accused, what we heard yesterday inside this court, one of the defense lawyers saying that Zungu had sat on this information, of saying that the accused, who he believed were allegedly involved in the murder of Senzo Meyiwa, between 2014 and 2019, when he had met a senior police officer, General Lishabane, he had not said anything to police between 2014 and 2018/2019. Why did he sit on that information? If it was a police officer who was invited to the hostel, even though he had been invited by his nephew, when he witnessed an exchange of firearms after he said that the accused had hurriedly returned from wherever it is they had gone to, and he witnessed the exchange of firearms between accused number 1, 3, as well as his nephew Kwabini, why did he not effect any arrests? So the defense is basically trying to say the man who is currently on the stand, who is still a police officer, cannot be relied on. He simply did not carry out his duties, even at the time when he believed or saw that there was something illegal that had been taking place. So we're expecting very much, Advocate Zandile Mshololo to continue on that trajectory here this morning, while re-examination is expected to follow very briefly, and a new witness is expected to take the stand. But essentially, the USB or the downloads that were done from the phone of accused number 3, the defense would basically want to use that to say they were not wearing the same clothing. Where are these items of clothing or the colors that Zungu says, for example, accused number 3 was wearing on the day? Do those show in the USB on the pictures that were downloaded of the photographs that were taken on the 26th of October 2014, on the day that Senzo Meyiwa was killed? So we begin at 10 o'clock once again this morning. Cross-examination continues. It will be live on the SABC YouTube page.